that having a good frontman in your band can be just as important, if not more, than having a good band itself. The modern metal sphere has kind of been obsessed with having parasocial relationships. You've seen it through TikTok. And a big reason that bands like Sleep Token and Bad Omens are as big as they are is the weird idolatry of the front people. I've said it once, I've said it again. If I have to see one more fucking Vessel thirst trap video, I'm offing myself. But it obviously extends to other projects, Will Ramos of Lorna Shore, Courtney LaPlante of Spiritbox. But it got me wondering if we are being a little bit too critical of Gen Z and millennials, and I know that's a generalization, but it's mostly us. And this kind of goes to the people who are very critical of idolatry of front people, because has that not always been such a cornerstone of every single metal band and metal genre since the inception of it? I don't think I need to remind y'all what women did to the glam metal bands, or how a lot of dudes literally tried to pattern themselves after Ozzy Osbourne. He literally got an entire TV series because of how people were obsessed with him, how people looked up to Chuck from Death or Lemmy from Motorhead. And I think for the success of a lot of bands, it kind of lives and breathes off of the connection that you have to the artists themselves, and I think that's a big deal. Now, there's a whole rant that I can make about guitarists and drummers, but I am specifically talking about frontmen and frontwomen, because does the point not still hold with all of the popular metal bands of the past couple of decades, if not 4 or 5 decades? I mean, you can talk about irreplaceable metal vocalists, but you could argue that Serj from System of a Down, Travis Ryan from Cattle Decapitation, Chester from Linkin Park, Maynard James Keenan from Tool and A Perfect Circle, Mikhail Ackerfeld of Opeth, the list goes on and on. So many of these bands are made up of what they are because of the connection people have to the artists themselves. If it wasn't for how much emotion people like Trent Reznor put into Nine Inch Nails or Corey Taylor put into Slipknot, would it necessarily mean the same to people, because you can resonate with and love music, but if you have a general connection to the actual people making the music, you feel this sort of parasocial connection, and you can rant as much as you want that parasocial connections are bad, but it's not going to make them not exist. And also, I don't think that parasocial relationships are necessarily toxic unless you let them become toxic. There should be a pretty common sense big difference between having such a toxic connection to an artist that you literally feel like you are entitled to knowing their entire life, and simply an artist having such a deep impact on your life and shaping you into a person, either through getting you through a rough period of your life or the art that they created. I don't think that there's necessarily anything wrong with that. I mean, art since the beginning of time was made to make people think critically, to inspire people, to provide entertainment, to provide some sort of respite, and people find a lot of solace through music for a good reason. But as someone who really does love a lot of metalcore and deathcore music of the 2000s and 2010s, I feel like one of the biggest things is, unless you are truly in that world, do you actually know who's making the music? I mean, I have no doubt, and this goes without saying, if you like any band, whether it's metal or rock or otherwise, you're going to know who makes the music if you truly fall down that rabbit hole. If you enjoy a band enough to religiously listen to them, chances are you probably are going to know the names of the members, or maybe you watch some interviews. So part of me wonders if a lot of bands don't have the same cultural impact and longevity and fizzle out a little bit in terms of the public eye once their popularity wears thin a little bit, simply because people don't have that same sort of deep connection to the music itself because they don't know that much about the people. I mean, let's be honest, how many fucking metal bands are out there where it's just a dude in a tank top and cargo shorts, pretty nondescript, and they don't really put a lot of themselves out there? Maybe it's in their music, but people don't necessarily know what the person's going through outside of what they're putting out lyrically. Whereas a lot of the modern metal bands, even if you don't listen to them or don't even like them, you probably know who they are. You instantly know who Will Ramos is. You know what he looks like. You know what he sounds like. You know what Vessel from Sleep Token looks like, and Courtney LaPlante from Spiritbox, and chances are, unless you're living under a rock, you know the classics as well, even if you didn't listen to them. People know what Chuck Schuldiner looked like. People know what Corpsegrinder looks like from Cannibal Corpse. And there's such a thing as that publicity of people just having notoriety surrounding you. And in the social media age, I would argue that it's more important than ever if what you are chasing is popularity. But I don't think it's necessarily mutually exclusive with clout chasing, because a lot of the biggest grunge bands were big without necessarily wanting to be big. And obviously that's kind of like a blanket statement, but Dave Grohl and Kurt Cobain and Chris Cornell, they didn't necessarily want to just be famous. They weren't chasing fame, and they made very grimy, dirty music. They just so happened to connect with a lot of people, and people sort of saw them as these cultural symbols, both aesthetically as well as the movements that they pushed and pretty much founded. So music is not necessarily that unlike Hollywood in the sense that you have to do interviews, but I don't think that's necessarily enough. You have to be, like, interesting to some degree, and I hate to say that because that kind of sounds dickish, but think about all of the names I mentioned in this video. Think about all of the timeless classic names in the metal world. There was something that made them stand out a little bit. There's something about their look, there's something about their energy, there's something about their personality that make people gravitate towards them because they're either funny or intriguing or interesting, and this goes for any type of musician. But I think that in pop and folk and electronic and hip-hop, it definitely means less. So it makes me wonder why there is such an integral focus on the frontman. I mean, you see so many bands be on the verge of collapsing because they lose a musician that just defined them. Even Lorna Shore went through a lot of periods where it was up in the air of if they were going to be able to continue, and if they were, if it was going to be a new era that was worth listening to and impact people in the same way. And I don't think it's necessarily fair to just say that a new era has to be better than the past or has to live up to it. The whole point of a new beginning is a new beginning. But I don't think it's necessarily bad to say that a project meant a lot to some people at one point in its career, so it's not necessarily the worst thing to say I want to see that live up to what it once was. But what are your guys' opinions of this topic? Do you agree or disagree? You can let me know down in the comment section below. Agree or disagree, there is no wrong answer. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to join the review family today, and smash that notification bell to be notified of my future uploads. You know who it is, my name is Jay Morris, and I'm signing off saying farewell.